Hey there everyone, it's Mr. Farley with some more of our tech tips. Today we're going to look at how we can effectively apply visualization when we're integrating hypermedia into our content and teaching our students. So first, what is visualization? Well, visualization is exactly what it sounds like. It's using visual elements to help reinforce an idea or concept that we might be teaching in class. So a couple of our common ways of using visualization is when we use PowerPoint or Google Slides, some kind of slide presentation, or when we are providing students with a web page that might give them some information. So those visual elements are going to be pictures, diagrams, images, maps, videos, anything that's visual in nature that's not audio but it's not text. When we're thinking about our visualization with our content, we would need to keep in mind the cognitive theory. So cognitive load says that our mind's capacity to take information is limited. We can only take in so much information at once before we become overwhelmed and we start losing some of that information. So our mind is taking in the content, our students' minds are taking in everything that's going on around them, whether it's the distraction, the kids talking next to them, whether it's the phone ringing in the classroom, anything that's going on outside of what we can control, and also what's going on in the presentation of the content. So whether that's the web page, any of the ads going off on the side, the colors, or with our presentation, how we are presenting it, everything outside of the content itself is also being taken as we present our information as well. So when we're talking about visualization, we want to make sure we're finding that happy medium between too basic and too excessive. So here we have a perfect example with the Mona Lisa. Too basic, we've knocked it down to just black and white. So it gives us the raw information, the raw content that we need, but it doesn't make it interesting. It's not very engaging. It's very, very basic. It's not something that's going to draw your attention. On the other side, we have the excessive visualization where we've added new details that don't really add to the main point of the artwork or the main points of our content, if we want to relate it back to our classroom. So it's excessive and it takes away from the focus on the actual content. So some other tips for effective visualization. When we're using colors with our diagrams or with our presentations and our web pages, we want to make sure the number of colors we're using is limited. We're not trying to use as many colors as possible. And our colors are high contrast. They're easy to tell the difference between the background and the text on the page or the images on the page. When we're using images and videos, we need to make sure we're using simple images that aren't too distracting and too meaty, if you will, or too content heavy for our kids, and we want to make sure that they're not just there to be there, that they're actually adding information. And then we want to make sure that our information is organized and easy to follow for our students. So back on our webpage, we have a great example here. We've got a small amount of text, we've got a video that breaks it down, and then we have an image that breaks down even further. It's very simple, very easy to organize. And then on the top right, you can see this web page breaks it down even further. So it has one page that talks about how to use text effectively, one that uses colors effectively, and one that uses images effectively. Some of the mistakes that we make as teachers, and I've been there too as well, trust me, I've made these mistakes trying to just make the presentations as exciting as possible. Excessive colors, bright colors that are extreme or clashing. I know I have a lot of students when they're making a presentation, they want to use a bright orange background with bright green font because I told them to add colors and make it exciting. Well, it was a little too exciting. It hurt my eyes when I had to look at it. So we want to make sure we're not being too excessive with our colors. When we're using images and videos, again, not putting too many of those onto one page. So there's all these different things for kids to look at and videos to play. We want to make sure that those images and videos really add new information. It's not just a restatement of everything that's given in text, and it's also not just there to be there. It's actually part of the content. And then we want to make sure that when we're organizing information, we're breaking it down into bite-sized chunks. We're not giving them a whole bunch of information at once. We're breaking it down easy to swallow pieces of information. So as a bad example here, we've got a very, very bright slide. There's a lot of bright colors, a lot of yellows and oranges that are clashing. It's hard to read some of the font here. We have the title slide that's written sideways. Again, you've got a lot of distractions going on, and it takes away from the main point of the slide here. So the biggest takeaway from here, when we're using visual elements to enhance our content, when we're trying to teach our students and get them to learn, It's always best to keep it simple, but sometimes that can be really, really complicated. So the biggest focus, the biggest takeaway from here is to make sure that we're making things interesting, but we're keeping it simple enough that the students can still understand and still have that cognitive load capacity to connect that new learning with their established content knowledge.